afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of Reptiles and Cocktails. As you guys can imagine, I'm very excited about my guest today. Those who are close to me as the usual suspects and a few other people in the reptile community. You know how I feel about this person in my life and what he means to the reptile community. And it's not many people that I will probably cut for, but this is definitely one of them. So I am so excited to have our guest on. So before we bring him on, and then of course this is Kevin McCurley from NERD. So he is not only the owner, but he is working today. So we want to be sensitive to his time, but I want to make sure that we get to all the points we want to get to, and you guys get to embrace his charisma, his knowledge, all the things that many may not even know of him, to be honest. I think that we just know him as the owner of New England Reptile Distributors. I had the pleasure of visiting privately with a tour about a year ago. And ever since that moment, I looked at him totally different. So he is a person just like we are who love reptiles and who takes care of his animals every single day. So his passion that we see on social media is not about money. It's about the animals. I can tell you that firsthand. And those are the type of people that most of us, well, I can tell you the people who kind of cling around me, that's who you are. You know, even if you're a breeder, you care about that animal first than you do the actual reptile. So with that being said, I want to just give a couple shout outs real fast. Make sure you go visit Jeremy Wolfel's page, his YouTube. Both if you can drop Jeremy's link in the chat sometimes. He's trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and he's doing a big, beautiful giveaway. Call me selfish. Please go over to his channel and make sure that you subscribe. Great person in the reptile hobby as well. So we want to support. To no further ado, I'm going to bring on our guest right now, and it is the man, Kevin McCurley.
Did you just gender assign me? I got
the man, the Michael Jackson of reptiles.
Oh boy, and I love Michael Jackson. That was some amazing talent. But
yeah, how are you?
I have those kind of talents, but I have pseudo talents.
You are amazing. So thank you everybody who are in the comments, and thank you. Behind the scenes is Bosa Balls, guys. Bosa charged me nothing to be my administrative assistant today. He's just an amazing man in the hobby, Kevin, and very supportive of me, have been very supportive along this journey that I've been on. And he also was a guest that never would come on the camera. And for my birthday, I got him to do a video, a reptile live with me on camera, when everybody told me I wouldn't be able to. So, yes, Chip, you should get your guitar.
This is my fidget spinner. This helps me sit still.
Okay, so guys, if you're having trouble hearing anything, just let us know. Kevin, you can still hear me okay, right?
I'm wonderful.
Good. Okay, good. I have a big mouth anyway. So first, I wanted to start off before we get into the nitty gritty. When I visited Kevin, okay, so we all knew that he created a whole bunch of animals, but I was amazed at some of the genetics that I didn't even know that you were the originator of. So if you don't mind sharing, and I don't want you to go through all of them because I know it's a lot, but if you can tell us, let's start with the ball pythons. If there was not a Kevin McCurley, it wouldn't be a what?
I know. I was in a nutshell. So I was keeping all these different animals. And I didn't have the money to buy like a black-headed python, although I aspired to have black-headed pythons, woma pythons, all sorts of green tree pythons. So I started looking through shipments of imported ball pythons, and I was looking for weirdly patterned and colored snakes. And as I was breeding animals and selling my babies, I would always invest back. I took it from a hobby to where I am now, which is this big, massive thing. And what I just did, I constantly just fed everything back into it because I'm just an exaggerated hobbyist, but everything about me is I dream animals all day long. But I ended up producing, let's say, the first ghost ball pythons. I would start naming a lot of stuff. So I came up with all these goofy names. So that kind of, people didn't really like ball pythons besides an albino. And I was looking at all these other weird things, and I didn't know how to breed ball pythons, but I quickly learned. And I just started naming them. So I came up with the first ghost, because it looks like you pulled the snake out of the freezer and it's all frosty. I called it Ghost. First pastel jungles, the first caramel albinos. Then I did the first spiders. And then I did the first combo ball python, which is like the bumblebee.
Yep.
And then you did like honeybees, so that's a spider ghost. Then I did the first super pastels and the first killer bees, so super pastel spider. And then I continued making all these goofy names like Hidden Gene Woma. Then I bred Hidden Gene Woma to like a lesser platinum, made soul suckers. So I was, doing all these, like desert ghosts and all that stuff. And I just came up with all these goofy names because I was trying to excite myself, but also excite would-be people, like, to appreciate what I was doing. Because I used to always get, yeah, it's pretty, but it's still a ball python.
Right.
And while I was doing this, I was also breeding, like, I was breeding all sorts of stuff, but reticulated pythons became a strong passion because I find them to be one of the pinnacle large constrictors. You have this massively intelligent animal that is constantly adjusting its behavior. If you're intuitive, you actually recognize what this animal is capable, the challenges it is to keep physically, but mentally the rewards to it. And once you develop a relationship with them, so I was making, I made the first orange ghost stripes. I made the first calicos that were born in captivity. I made first jaguars. I made the first phantoms, the first anthrax, the first cows, all sorts of, we're making, ivories and all sorts of stuff. So I was making all sorts of cool retics, all the golden childs, all that stuff. That was all me. So you made, the golden child, the albino golden child, the melanistic golden child. So I was doing all that. And then while I'm also doing this, I'm also breeding monitors.
Yep.
Specifically Verena salvator, which is the Asian water monitor. So I was doing those, and I came up with the first, producing the first T negative albinos, the T positive albinos. And I made over here first Axanthics, first Simbawas, just some different stuff like that. And, a lot of different variations of water monitors. And of course, I've done tokay geckos and all sorts of other species. I did some of the first breedings of Papuan pythons in the country. I bred Papuan pythons 3 times. But there's a lot of stuff. Maybe people just don't know it. I don't drive a lot of that, but I breed a lot of weird stuff, and I'm constantly changing my breeding strategies and what I'm working with and what enamors me. But I tend to breed a lot of sometimes particularly sensitive animals that are a little bit harder to breed.
Right.
A ball python. But that is something, I'm strongly into, just, always breeding the next thing or something different. I really like mangrove snakes right now and all that. And then as time has come along, somebody started, they were videoing me, and they're like looking at all my behaviors with the animals, and they're like, you're like the reptile whisperer, you're like an animal whisperer. And they're like, you got to teach people how to do this. So yep. I kind of do these socialization videos, and I'm talking about animals and living in their modes and recognizing the modes, and then threads of trust. So I really pride myself in being able to socialize animals and develop relationships with them, let alone have these spectacular, handsome, beautiful animals. I also want to play around with the minds of these animals, and that's actually what drives me.
And so for all of y'all who heard all of that, who, if you didn't know how deep Kevin was, and you look at me and you called me the animal whisperer, I inspired to be that man that man. Now, when I didn't know how close in age we actually were, I always thought that maybe, you were a lot older, and I looked up to you from way back in the days, and people know that. But I say this, I wanted Kevin to run all of that down, because a lot of times when I say that people can compare to you, and Aussie boys say this a lot too, like we would not exist as ball python breeders, reticulated python breeders, with some of these amazing morphs that we are breeding today, if this awesome individual did not get birthed into this world. And that's just facts. And he's just running down some of it. I know that it was shocking to me, because when I came to visit Kevin, I already had my golden child. I already had my bumblebees. I already had my spiders, And then I get there, and then he has these beautiful golden child cows. So when you guys look at my golden child cow, and I wanted to bring her out, Kevin, but she ate last night, that is where my baby had to come from. I'm like, he created the golden child. And I'm sitting there, and my husband said he would never forget that day, because I had so many emotional moments. I think we bonded forever that day. But I will tell you, that was amazing to me. And I said to Kevin, and I say to Jeremy and Rob all the time, that day I felt like I was living a dream. And when I die, that is the one part of my funeral that someone must talk about in my life, is the day that I went to your facility. That was the most amazing reptile experience I ever had. I think that it changed you from this amazing person to almost like this God-sent person. And Kevin's very humble, so he takes those words very lightly. But to a person like me, you changed my reptile world years ago. But meeting you that day, when it came to the reticulated pythons, and some of the tips that you gave me, it allowed me to go, when I say crazy with them, like I literally, the animals roam the house, Kevin. They literally go upstairs, downstairs, around the corner. We had one the other day. I posted a picture trying to get into the rat room, the pod, trying to open the door of the rat room itself. And it's all because you made me 100% comfortable with understanding that animal. So one of the reasons I wanted you on today is to talk about that. But there's a lot of people who are falling in love with the larger constrictors because of people are more visible with them, like myself.
Yeah.
What is the 3 tips, if you can give that person who just own ball pythons, never touched a large berm or retic, what is 3 tips you would give them before purchasing one?
All right, that's real good questions. I forgot to mention I also write books.
Yeah.
See some of my books that I write.
He has yet to write the reticulated python book.
They want me to write so many books, that, like all the monitor and reptile socialization. I am so overwhelmed in my existence. But okay, to answer your questions, so let's say you're thinking about a larger constrictor, and obviously reticulated pythons, hands down, is the longest potentially. The one thing that we're doing is we're breeding some smaller variations of non-mainland reticulated pythons, which have a smaller maximum size potential. So right off the bat, if you're going to do what do you want to keep? Do you want to keep a smaller growing retic, or do you have kind of sky's the limit where you're anticipating a 16-foot animal or larger?
Right, or larger.
When you make a snake that big, it's actually a lot of work as far as its dedication of the keeper to properly manage it. Until it's 16 foot, it's 18 foot. So that means obviously caging, good solid care, because these animals, as large as they are, they're incredibly fragile too. They're fragile to failures and improper husbandry and just mistakes. And so you want to be able to make sure you have the caging. Secondly, it's not an animal that, if you have very limited experience, excuse me, if you have limited experience, or you just don't kind of jive well, and if you're very uncomfortable with the movement of snakes and you think you're going to get bit, that's not the snake for you. Reticulated pythons are an animal that is highly intuitive.
Yep.
So my behavior, and I know you understand this, flow. You have to flow. So I watch your videos. When you're playing with your animals, you're never, ever considering, oh, don't do this. If you snake, do you have to start watching your behavior with, and you've raised it. Quite likely you haven't developed the relationship that I want you to develop, and it might speak because you don't understand some of the things. And this is where we start kind of blurring lines, because there's a lot of people that keep snakes, but they don't necessarily understand snakes. So they don't have this kind of, I call it like magic. And
right.
And it's usually a very smaller amount of people that actually see that really have a very noticeable level. You'll see people that reasonable, and then there's some people that are completely blind to it. But if you're going to keep a larger constrictor like a reticulated python, they're highly intelligent, they're aware of you, and there's plenty of do's and do nots. So if you can manage the caging, you can manage the food, and you can manage the handling, and you can do it all in a appropriately responsible fashion, indeed it's the animal for you. But learn about modes. Snakes live in modes. So I talk about this: sleep mode, feeding mode, thinking mode, and fearful mode. We want to go into thinking mode. Thinking mode is the animal crawling around, taking information and analyzing it with its brain. Sleep mode, you want to make sure when you enter the animal's environment, it's not asleep, because these are, besides being active hunters, they're also ambush hunters. So they'll lay sleeping, and all of a sudden you enter the cage and you're not aware that the animal's sleeping. They can go from sleep into feed mode instantly, and that can get you bit. And that's not bitten by an animal that knew you were a person. It's reacting on instinct. These are animals that are pre-programmed. That's an instinctual behavior. So what you have to do with our big brains, when you enter the animal's environment, you make sure you understand right off the bat, what mode is that animal in? If it's sleep mode, I need to enter and then wake it up. And usually that's using a hook, a little, all of a sudden it looks around. You might take the butt of the, snake hook, put it in the face, and you shut off that feed response, because you do not want to enter its environment where it thinks it's a food opportunity. And you can train these guys to quickly establish, oh, that's my buddy, that's my mom, that's whatever, that's your friend.
Say it again. Yep.
My mom, right?
Yep.
The snake knows you. Reticulated pythons know you by sight. They know you by your voice, because they are not deaf, contrary to what people think. They might not have acute hearing, but they're
not deaf.
Right. And I mean, and that's kind of sad. People actually think they live in this silent world, and that's not true. They know what you smell like. They know your behaviors, and they're constantly taking in this information and adjusting their brains, and they learn. So they build memories, and then it changes their mind. Going forward, they're constantly reconfiguring their brain. So we've gone from an instinctual animal to this intelligent creature that's adjusting its brain according to the environment you give it.
That's right.
And it's so important. But first thing, go in the cage, know what mode it's in. Don't even go into the cage until you know what mode. And you want to get it into thinking mode. And if it's going into food mode, you need to get it out of the food mode, or that means that you have not managed its behavior to teach it. There's a difference between handling then feed mode. I strongly recommend you never feed a large reticulated python or any reticulated python live prey. Always defrosted is way better. I love rabbits and rats and mice, and I think we deserve to treat these animals as properly as we can with respect and empathy. And I'm not trying to bore people, but we do not look good when we do like a feed video or we're being insensitive of an animal that's being fed to another animal. Obviously, humans, we rely on eating animals a lot in our diet. And if we do this for snakes or whatever, I don't feed them live, something like that. You never have to feed a reticulated python live because you can,
never.
You know, and what you're doing is you're exciting its behavior for a food opportunity. It's always far better to feed it in a passive manner because one day, you know, hands, it's what's for dinner. That's like a joke. You don't want to be on the biting, constricting, you know, the painful, potentially dangerous part of that. So I would always desensitize the feeding opportunity. And we want to slide into thinking mode. If you have an animal that is fearful, you can watch the snake's behavior. Long, meandering tongue flicks. Just smooth movements, not pulled back, an occasional tongue flick or half tongue flicks. And if that animal squares up with you, you're asking for problems. Your eyes are everything. Your eyes cause a nervous animal stress. And a reticulated python and many other snakes will actually go for your eyes because that's the face of potential danger. So never, ever put yourself into a position with a squared up snake. Always passive. Never let that animal do that because obviously your eyes are incredibly fragile. I show techniques when you're handling an animal and you're kind of nervous. I do this thing where if you're holding it and the animal's looking away and it starts coming back, as soon as it starts coming back, I do this. So it comes back, and I'll twirl around in circles. And I'll do all this because when you grab an animal behind its head, unless you're passively doing that, you're causing the animal to fear you. It is panicking, and now it creates this negative thread of trust. Every time we have an interaction with one of these animals, and it's a positive one, you're building a thread of trust. So collectively, your threads build a rope, and that rope is your relationship, your reliable day-to-day relationship with your lifelong pet. And if you have a very wonderful rope, you know your animal and you flow and you're comfortable because you built that and the animal built it with you. Do not do that if you don't know the animal, if the animal is constantly giving you signs of fear. If it's being fearful, not beautiful, long, meandering tongue flicks, flowing like this, but dodgy, shooting around, short tongue flicks, eyes darting around, squaring up to you, maybe flashing a strike at you, open mouth. If you're doing that and you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position, that is an error on the keeper, and you're not recognizing basic needs of managing large, dangerous constrictors. So I kind of go through this. I have videos on this, reading behavior, but I can win over a lot of gnarly animals because I intuitively understand this behavior, and I've tried to pass this on to other people because the better keepers we are, the more you're going to get out of your relationship with your animal. You're also going to project this confidence and this beautiful relationship, such as you have with your animals, that's infectious to would-be keepers, maybe people that are fearful. And we forever need to expand our base, our hobby. We need more people that love animals,
That's right.
These animals, because we need collectively to have a stronger, positive voice in the community and making ourselves appear like monsters by doing live feed videos, insensitive behaviors to rodents, because there are people that keep pet mice, rats, bunny rabbits. This is all stuff that I love too. And if you act insensitive, you make all other reptile keepers appear in a different light. And let's face it, I don't keep all these big giant snakes because I want to see them kill things.
That's right.
I keep them because I love the animal. That how they're acquiring their food is it's something that forever troubles me. But if we're sitting there feeding live animals and we're like, yeah, and all this stuff, and I'm reading the comments in these videos, and your audience is a bunch of monsters, that becomes the narrative of reptile keeping. I don't want anything to do with that.
So I will tell you that my number one goal every single time I share a visual or audio of me and my animals is to show several things that you talked about. So people assume, people tell me that you can never, ever, ever handle a reticulated python without a hook. So it's hysterical to me, Kevin, because I have snakes right now, and like, you know, some of my friends in the chat, they see it firsthand. I can open the enclosure door and the snake never goes into feed response. It knows if you open this side, mommy probably coming with a frozen thawed rabbit, but she opened this side, mommy, come take me out. In the way the snakes move, so they never see my snakes reactive at all. Now, what I tell people is, yes, there are times like my golden child, she's never going to be defensively reactive, but she gonna let you know when she don't want to be bothered either. And like, she might just bump you. If she bumped me the second time, I close the door. This is not her day. Why sit there and enforce her to do something she doesn't want to do right now? But I can go back 1 hour later, and then she's like, mommy, take me out. Something else that you said, I noticed that they are the reticulated python. Let's say if T'Challa didn't want to go out, and then I bring out 2 other reticulated pythons, all of a sudden she wants to come out. It's like she's almost envious of the fact that I now have these 2 other reticulated pythons out. Now I want to come out with you. So I think that for us as large reptile keepers, and I got to go back to Tim's comment. Tim is a great advocate in the community. His channel is Intrepid Exotics. I actually found him, and we found each other through our larger reticulated python videos. But what I love is that he does a lot of education on that and the importance of positive and responsible reptile keeping in support of U.S. art. That's his brand, if you ask me. But Tim said, make sure Kevin knows that he saved my life many times, because if you were uneducated in some of the situations that Tim was in, it can turn out to the situation that occurred a week ago.
Yeah, Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. I was just down there. I was just down there snake hunting, right? I got back the day before I saw that break in the news. So remember a couple things. So right off the bat, somebody will say you can never do a reticulated python without a hook. Well, we're taking, not all reticulated pythons are remotely the same, as not all keepers are the same. So if you're a better keeper, you're more knowledgeable, and you possess more magic compared to a meathead keeper that has no finesse, you could have the same exact animal in 2 very different scenarios.
Experiences.
A horrible animal that's unreliable, and you just throw food at it and it's just gross, or this animal that you're have it out crawling around in your kitchen, and you're just like, you know, I have reticulated pythons. I can just let them come out of the cage and they just crawl around the room, and I leave it alone for hours. They'll come over, and people come in, they're visiting and all that.
Yep.
And that is the beauty of reticulated pythons. And obviously we have other pythons that also have, you know, all these different similarities. But I do believe reticulated pythons are definitely one of your peak intellectual little geniuses, and they really are. And, you know, and what Tim's saying, you know, as you do this and you learn more and more, you navigate through this. And one thing that's really important, not to have an ego that's bigger than you.
Yeah.
forever we're being humbled by our animals. And I do meet some people that have very large egos, and you can't adjust them, and they have all these predetermined ideas in their mind. And I always find that really frustrating, because I do believe I'll adjust my thinking, because there's a lot of really amazing keepers out there that I can learn a lot from. And I have, to build up to where I am. There has been so much interaction with other keepers, a huge amount of mistakes on my time and my experiences, and micro adjusting, but learning. But there's some of us that cannot learn from other keepers, because we're so egotistical, we're so clouded, and we're caught up in maybe our own perceived greatness, which is ridiculous. Because when I do occasionally meet people like this and I see the kind of person, I can turn into an ego monster, because I'm like, really, dude? You think you're so awesome? I can school you. And that's when I have to be a little bit, egotistical, because I see a lot of people getting credit for certain things, and I'm like, this is like the day and age of social media and perception. But I know like how the person is, and I'm like, that person isn't even like nearly as competent as all these other people that I see all sorts of magic and all sorts of incredible talent, and
Right.
they're not getting any credit. And then I see people, I'm like, is this real? It's just because some kind of social media position, whatever. But I think it's always good to be humble, realize that we have a lot more to learn, adjusting our behaviors, and never thinking it's always a cookie cutter, like you can't trust a reticulated python. They make reticulated pythons illegal in all these different states because they're using the model of, let's say, a wild caught reticulated python. We routinely breed reticulated pythons. We work with bloodlines that are sweeter, all these different things. We're heading towards a domestication in the idea. I think the true term of domestication is you adjust it so far from its wild that it wouldn't function very well in the wild.
Right.
But a pig is known to be domesticated, but can go through a physiological change within a few weeks of being back out into the environment and becoming feral. So I certainly have my monitor lizards and all that are 5 and 6 generations removed from the wild, and they do not display a lot of the behaviors, let's say, of a wild Salvatore monitor.
So I would say too, speaking to that, when you talk about the egos, first of all, I had Chip Endo on last week. I told you he was going to be on last week.
Yeah, Chip. And you know what? I just reached out to him because you did that. Like, Chip, the laws suck, right? Yeah, like, oh, this is horrible.
But it's so funny. So I admire Chip as well, because when I got into retics, he was one of the ones who had the old school wild courts and everything like that. And so I was doing these lives for a minute, and one day I saw him in the chat, and I almost passed out because we know Chip does not play in mud that isn't clean, type of thing. So when I saw that he actually was in my chat, it humbled me. But I was even more humbled that he was watching and applauding my success with the animals. But what I would say is, you mentioned about the relationship of the animal and the keeper. I think it makes a difference who you are. And I said this in a video the other day. It's cool to say I have a big animal, right? That's cool. But to do it safely for yourself and the animal, you have to love that animal first. And even down to the husbandry, people, like, where do you get all of the money to buy all those enclosures? Well, I saved for this point in my life. And you can't just say, oh, let me get a reticulated python because this person has one, and put it in the tub with no mindset of how that animal is going to grow with you. And so I don't try to get egotistical, but where if Maki is in the comments, I get very passionate about certain things when it comes to the animals that we keep, because what you do wrong and your ill exposure of it will affect me who's doing everything right, or you who's doing everything right, or the next person who's doing everything right. So I think we have a responsibility to correct those things. Now, you know me, I want it to be done politically correct in a positive way, but sometimes if you come across those people who just don't get it, you know, you have to say it the way it is. You know, it's not about you. You know, it's about all of us. What I do impact everybody in this chat. If I decide to take my reticulated python down to the inner harbor, and even with that, I make a decision which ones I'm going to take. I only take the ones that I know that's going to give people positive experiences 100% of the time. I'm not going to take the moody golden child down to the inner harbor and tell your children to touch it. That's not responsible keeping.
And to some degree, talking about responsible keeping or maybe just best management practices, sometimes I think people just shut down. You're boring. You're not this and you're not that. And like my behavior, I am far from a boring person. I'm far from a responsible, like I tend to want to be like, I'm edgy and I do a lot of weird stuff and I'm angry and all this different stuff. But I will shift gears from all that when I'm presenting myself, because I want to be the voice of the hobbyist. I want to be concerned about the will and the worries of a hobbyist. So I have to go and adjust myself and just try to ground myself and be better for the benefit of everyone. And I just, it's important because you have people that are always going to emulate what you do, and they'll emulate you doing something stupid, probably more so than you actually doing something responsible.
Right.
So I have to kind of slow down. I have to be thoughtful and try to have an impact on some people. And it's really weird because there's a lot of people that don't know me and people think I'm mean because I'm a little bit antisocial, or Kevin's this. And it's so funny. So many of my friends that know me, and then they're out in the reptile community, they're just like, dude, the things I'm hearing about you. I come with this giant net behind me of all sorts of sea junk, That's like, if I was a fisherman, I'd be like tires and old rusty things and cans. And it's like, but no, really, I'm a fisherman. Well, I got all this sea junk behind me, and that's all they think. And it's a tough thing to try to have an impact on other people. I get a lot of people that really key into my methodology of winning animals over and the socialization. And then I have people that aspire to maybe my mindset or just my general knowledge, maybe medically, or the care and keeping of or breeding. I'm very good at problem solving animals to a degree because I've dealt with so many problems, and I try to learn these things. And then I try to pass that information on. And it can also be really frustrating when I'm in an environment of, pet tubers, and the pet tubers that keep 35 snakes or something like that. And there's people that think the pet tuber is some expert. They might be an expert at keeping, garter snakes or something like that. But it's really, really weird. It's just, and you also know when we talk, people might hear you for 30 seconds and then that's it. It's gone. Because I don't do something exciting enough for them to actually sit here and listen through 30 minutes of my dribble to actually go, wow, this guy, he's a little bit unusual and he might know some stuff. So it's, I don't know how I got on that tangent. So
no, that's good. No, because I'm going to say something about that, but that's okay. First of all, before I go further, I'm going to acknowledge that your number one stalker, Sydney, is in the chat. She done said hi, Kevin, 100 times. Please say hi to Sydney.
Hi. Hello. My number one stalker, huh? I have some serious stalkers. I think she's probably lovely. And
yeah, she's a sweet one. She's one of the good stalkers. But I tell you that whenever she actually shares this picture every so often that she done photoshopped of you and her together that cracks me up every single time she posts it. And she's a married woman, but still, you have Sydney is in the house.
I appreciate that very much.
Tara gonna get you, girl. I will say this though, to that point. It's the world, Kevin. It's kind of like I always say, if you on social media and you post, today I just graduated and got my PhD, you might get 99 likes. If you post, my god sister was in a terrible accident and died, you'll get 1,200 people who would like and share that post. When the other post was the one that the 1,200 people should have liked, you achieved a PhD. It's the world, but I'm not changing who I am for anybody. Like, and I always say this: do I want to grow my platform? Yes, but I want to do it organically, and I want to do it in ways that it's going to help the community of reptile keeping. I shared with Kevin recently, and like some of the friends in the chat know that as of August 5th, I'm leaving my full-time job of many, many years that took really good care of me, so I can spend the rest of my life doing what Kevin had the beauty to do for quite some time. And you know, that's not always easy. Kevin and I talk. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. So for me, it frees up me more time. And Kevin, I want you to talk about this when we go to the next section. But it's going to give me more time to do, Kevin, what you always say you thought I should be doing, being more of a lobbyist for reptile keeping. It's going to allow me to do more of reptile education, which I've already started at with some of the free time that I'm starting to get now. But it's going to allow me to create this whole new platform that is going to create a whole nother section of reptile people. And I see it now. There are people in my corner that are not the sensationalists. These are people who show up for the educational part of it. There are people who go into my inbox and my DMs who ask very concerning questions about how to properly take care of their animal at any cost. So although at one point you may feel defeated, Kevin, you're starting to get more people like myself that's right beside you and behind you who are doing this for a different reason, who can show you that, yes, we can still use this platform to educate, demonstrate, and motivate people to love these animals without showing you that this animal is going to act like this if I take the eggs from the mother. Like I said before when I was talking to Chip, any animal who don't defend its child is not fit to live. So that is not showing that the right light though, because people think that that's what that reticulated python does. It thinks that every time you go near it, it's going to lunge at you. No, I don't have one that does that. I'm sure that if I ever decide to breed them, which I probably won't, because I don't think it's enough people who care for them the way that I do, that's going to grow them up. I'd rather for them not to exist than to be killed off. So in that particular instance, I want to move on to our next subject about the Lacey Act victory. How do you feel about that today? Because you've done a lot for the last few years.
Yeah, obviously I'm very involved with advocacy for our hobby of the keepers, of the breeders. And obviously everything is ingrained and focused on the support of USARK. Being part of USARK, I've worked with USARK for years, and they've relied on my expertise, and I mean, that's humbling that I get to be, one of the voices that helps comment and come through our argument when we're dealing with the federal authorities like U.S. Fish and Wildlife and state agencies. But so Phil Goss is the president of USARK Official. And then we have a particularly different one, which is USARK Florida, and that's Elizabeth. But federally, we're constantly getting hit with federal legislation being exercised and a new potential limitation, as well as state. So USARK Official has to deal with the federal issues and also jumps in there to help each state. So we just recently had to fend off something which would be essentially, just to simplify it, like a whitelist. And the whitelist means that powers that be would decide species of animals that you could bring into a state, bring out of the state, cross the state border, that did not represent some type of danger. Now, when we say danger, it could be a physical danger, or it could be a biological danger, or it could be a danger to the environment. So we have all these different variables that would then be involved with deciding, well, should we allow a reticulated python, a Nile monitor to come into our state or out of our state? Or should we not allow, white lab mice because they could carry disease? So it was really crazy because COVID, there's still certain people that believe COVID came from a wet market, from a wild source, even snakes. And that's how it came to be. So they would say that they are trying to make sure people are safe from a bio threat. Right. So a bio threat concern, we have an ecological concern if the animal were to get loose and live. We have a physical, is it a dangerous animal? So you had all these different things. So our federal government was going to try to create a list of animals that you could keep. So you might be able to keep a gerbil, a betta fish, a corn snake, but you might not be able to keep a Nile monitor, a reticulated python, a bearded dragon, all because of all these different reasons. So USARK, which is our number one way to even know when this stuff is being presented, they're always watching. So USARK happened to watch this America Competes Act in this 2,700 pages document. There was a little thing that they were trying to pass, which would give our federal government the go-ahead and the say to just decide whatever animals are going to be on the white list, and every other animal, if you have that animal and you cross the state border, it's a federal crime, and you could be punished some incredibly outlandish amount of money or some kind of jail time. I don't even know. So it'd be crazy. So USARK sounded the alarm, got everybody on board. We responded by writing letters, and they give us the form to write the letters, and we contact, our state politicians as well as our, senators and whatnot, and then we push back, and we let them know that we're really upset. This isn't based on science. This is based on hysteria. And let's not forget, these kind of things are being pushed by anti-pet and environmentalist groups. I'm a massive environmentalist. I'm a massive pet lover. But PETA and HSUS and all these different things that have these agendas, you can't talk to them. They talk at you. They dictate their understandings of things, and there's no, it's nonsensical most of the time, but they happen to have an incredible amount of money. They have lobbyists, and the lobbyists are rubbing elbows, by the water cooler with these politicians, and they get politicians to sign onto often idiocy in these proposed laws. And so the only way we can fight this is to obviously be aware, be part of USARK, be members of USARK, spread the word for USARK. And when USARK points us in a direction, we assemble our numbers and we respond. And that's the best thing that we can do. And if we did not have USARK, we'd be done.
Exactly. So we actually won this time because, this came up years ago. And another thing, I think that sometimes because of the different age brackets in reptile care, people don't remember. Like, I could remember I could have an alligator in Maryland when I was a little girl, and I couldn't wait to do it. And then I become an adult and I can't have it anymore. And so again, what somebody does impacts the next generation as well. So if I improperly keep large snakes, berms, retics, boas, ball pythons, whatever, it could kill the dream of a little child who's 5 years, like my granddaughter. My granddaughter's 6 years old. She loves every one of these animals. Every last one of them. She loves the lizards. She loves the water monitors. She loves them all. So imagine me being irresponsible and shifting what her future could be with her animals because of my irresponsibility. So I think one of the things I want to clarify, Kevin, if you can, some people think because of the win with the Lacey Act, Florida is out of the woods, and that's not true.
Oh God. All right. Florida, it's a whole new level. Right now, we're dealing with different state problems. Like Alabama right now might ban all king snakes and milk snakes. There's a really good chance Alabama's going to ban king snakes and milk snakes unless we somehow counter them. But Florida has its own unique U.S. ARC, and it's U.S. ARC Florida, and I strongly recommend and urge everybody to be part of U.S. ARC. Please go to their Instagram, show your support, follow them, U.S. ARC Florida, follow them. Right now, they have very, very small numbers on their Instagram. And if we're going to be taken seriously, we need to be represented in numbers. But join the fight for the Florida keepers, because a lot of Florida keepers are in disbelief of what's coming on. But what's going to happen, to simplify it, FWC, which is Florida's Fish and Game, have said, and this is quoting, if it can live and breed in Florida, we do not want it here. Now, we need to really take those words to heart, because let's say we say ball pythons. Well, there's too many ball pythons in Florida. There's too many people keeping them. There's no way they're going to ban them. That same exact logic with iguanas was said with tegus. Iguanas are now illegal. Tegus are illegal. The only way iguana, you can be grandfathered, you have to have a yearly permit, and you have to build caging like you're housing Hannibal Lecter. I'm not joking.
Seriously.
Concrete knee walls. So you have to have this constructed prison inside another building. So it's double. So that certain kind of cage has to exist inside another closed room. And they've done this with iguanas, and they've done it with tegus. There is no breeding of iguanas or tegus in Florida. It's over. And that shut down so many people. But now what's happening is they're doing something called tag meetings. And tag meetings are technical assistant group meetings, which we don't have any way to video them. So this is kind of behind the scenes. And there are invested people on these panels that meet with FWC. And when they're invested interest, it means that there's somebody that owns a business or they're a breeder down in Florida, whereas U.S. ARC can't even be on the panel. They can be an observer, but you have to have somebody that has skin in the game, a financial potential loss or hardship. That's the only way you can be on this panel. And what's happening, let's be very, very clear. FWC is looking at all aquarium fish, pet birds, reptiles, inverts, exotic species, and they're looking at each one of them and they're doing a risk assessment. And the risk assessment is its potential risk of being an invasive if it were to get loose into the environment of Florida, which could damage property, agriculture, compete with the environment, whatever, or be dangerous to keepers. So they're looking at different animals and they're assessing low risk, medium risk, high risk. High risk, something like a Burmese python, an African rock python. Burmese pythons and African rock pythons are injurious and they're invasive in South Florida. So in at least 2 counties, they can exist and actually be warm enough and find a climate where they're actually able to actually breed. So they're high risk. We have also banned yellow anacondas that are not invasive in Florida. There's no breeding populations. Green anacondas. We've banned South African rock pythons, which are not in Florida, and they come from South Africa that gets a little bit cooler. But FWC went along and they said, well, we're going to ban this and this and this. There wasn't enough pushback. So now South African rock pythons are banned. Yellow anacondas are banned. Green anacondas. Now we have kinghorn eye, which is Australian scrub pythons, and Indonesian scrub pythons. So amethystine pythons, which are not in Florida, but they've all been assessed high risk. This is a trap. They got African rock python, South African rock python. They got yellow anaconda, green anaconda, and scrub pythons. None that are there invasive, and they got all of them to be listed as invasive. So now you need to look at all of the other species that live in the same kind of climate map. All right?
Okay.
So if I ban scrub pythons, well, how come carpet pythons? How come olive pythons?
Bolins.
How come bolins? All these different things are not also banned. So what they did,
Wait a minute. Let me stop. If somebody does have a Bolin's python that you released in the wild, can you let me know, please, so I can go get it? Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
The Bolin's pythons, FWC tried to include Bolin's pythons, but Bolin's pythons, they only saw 7 people keeping them. Babies so expensive. Bolin's pythons are so expensive. They said, well, this wouldn't be likely. And secondly, they can't tolerate that a lot of that heat.
Right.
You know? So let's remember one thing, something called precedence law. So if I set an example and I fight to prove this legal argument and then somebody adopts that, I've established a precedence. So we have a precedence with amethystine pythons. We have a precedence with South African rock pythons and yellow anacondas. So now they can say, well, we're going to take all other boids, pythons and boas that have similar climates. And if these animals are potentially invasive, then all of these ones should be too.
Right.
Including ball pythons, including boa constrictors. So ball pythons are high risk, boa constrictors are high risk, carpet pythons are high risk, blood pythons are high risk, short-tailed pythons are high risk, olive pythons, Papuan pythons. We continue. Then we can go into colubrids, non-pythons and boas, and go, well, they all can live in the same kind of climate, and they have the same invasive potential. And we're really in trouble. So let's say we look at Brazilian rainbow boas. Well, that's kind of like a little anaconda. Well, in Miami, there is now a wild population of Brazilian rainbow boas. They're breeding, they're having babies. There are wild leopard geckos in Tampa. There are amoeba lizards. There are Cuban night anoles that live in Florida. So all of those animals are high risk because they've proven they can do it. Boa constrictors. There's been boas in Florida since the late 60s. And there is an invasive population of boas. So now the only thing that hasn't happened is FWC has not said it. And they're getting all their ducks in a row, and they're going to start hitting us. Well, we're going to ban ball pythons. We're going to ban carpet pythons. We're going to ban sulcata tortoises. We're going to ban all varanus, all monitors. And when they announce that, people are going to lose their minds.
And I think that one of the things that I think is important is that people don't realize, and I'll use the Tagles for example. Tagles were banned in Florida. What Florida does sets precedence for all the other states. Whoever thought that Tagles would be banned in South Carolina and North Carolina?
Oh, and so I hope everybody that is listening to this boring guy, listen to how I articulate all of these points, because these points are incredibly finite and they're very real. I'm not saying the sky is falling. I'm guaranteeing the sky is falling. It is falling. So check this out. At one of the tag meetings that most people don't even know are occurring, but because USARK is there and I have people on the inside that tell me everything, they said FWC, Florida Fish and Game, said they are conducting the largest internet sting of any wildlife agency in Florida. They are gleaning information from all Florida keepers' social media. They have a full-time staff dedicated to collecting posts, videos, anything showing activities of Florida keepers in Florida. And what they're doing is they are noting anybody that's acting irresponsible, dangerous, not respecting the existing laws. And what they presented to USARK Florida was, hey, we have these laws in place to prevent this, this, and this, and this, and ensure public safety and environmental safety. With those laws in place, we have all of these things that we have been recording and assembling information. We haven't said a word because we've been letting fools do these things thinking everything was fine. Now we have everything. We're going to assemble this information and show these, bad examples. And now we're going to adjust our laws because these people with the laws in place are still doing all these things that we regard as irresponsible, dangerous, and whatever. So they've left a beautiful trap out for us. And we have a giant leg hole trap on us. And where we're at today, we do not think this is happening. That largely many Florida keepers are completely unaware of what is happening. USARK is aware. USARK is, they're beating the bushes. You have these people that are incredibly dedicated. Elizabeth, Michael Cole, Brian Love, Daniel Parker, all these people are trying to sound the alarm, but because maybe they don't have a good social media presence or they don't do something that's exciting, it just seems to get bypassed because this is the boring stuff. But this is the most nightmarish stuff, and people don't want to be involved. And the thing that's really sad, we largely think somebody else is going to do it. I'm not going to do this. Somebody else can do it. Or keepers outside of Florida are not rushing to the aid of other keepers in Florida. It's their problem. No, it's not. Florida is ground zero. It is the
That's right.
line, and it is going to have a massive ripple effect. And I'm going to give you proof. Recently, one of the people, the invasive biologist nightmares that we are battling in Florida is a guy named Eric Sutton. Eric Sutton specializes in the worries of invasive, injurious animals being released into the environment and is a strong proponent of banning these animals. Eric has now created an organization, Southeastern blah, 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 whatever it's called. And what it is, he's assembled players in each one of these Southeastern states that are all part of a group now where they're constantly talking and they're saying, hey, we're going to ban this in our state. You guys need to really get your ducks in a row and you need to start moving forward. So the states include Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas. That's just
Texas.
Oh, yes, in the Canary Islands.
Wow.
Okay, so they're all joining together and they're talking amongst each other and they're saying, hey, we got to worry about these pet species and we need to start banning these or limiting these. And they're working together. So right there, is a proof of what they're doing. And Eric Sutton decided that there was a need that they all talk and they all get on board, because if they all collectively work together, like North Carolina responded to Florida, like South Carolina did. North Carolina saw South Carolina banning black and white tegus. They just signed on. It didn't take science, no science. They just
Right.
did it. You know what? We got to do it. Florida, FWC just recently said that at the tag meetings, there has been obstructionists, meaning the reptile community, reptile hobbyists, mainly USARK, have been acting in an obstructionist tactic, which means that they're slowing things down. They're creating roadblocks into the discussion of risk assessment. And that means they said that if we want to engage in this obstructionist type activities like fashioning lawsuits, there are multiple lawsuits right now against FWC for being overreaching and not allowing due process, being authoritative, a totalitarian dictatorship. So there's lawsuits right now that the reptile community, USARK, has pushed back against FWC. So they said, if we do not want to be part of the conversation and part of these meetings, they will go ahead and they will make the hard decisions and they will decide. They said they will not, to quote them, they will not have the next python, the next lionfish, the next tegu lizard in Florida. So they will make the hard decisions to ban these animals. This is so painfully real, and I'm literally battling people that say that I'm a liar, that says USARK is a liar. They're spreading misinformation. USARK is trying to scare Florida keepers to give money, so it's a money grab. And I can argue 1,000,000,000% to counter argue that, because that is the words of a moron. USARK,
and someone who clearly is not a USARK member, because one of the things that they are is very transparent on the financial. And just let's say, if you ever retained an attorney, just say that what we're paying into USARK is not paying for all the hours that it is taking for Phil Goss and his team to fight for us. We had a victory yesterday that none of us had to show up for.
Absolutely. And all these people on, like Phil Goss, Todd Goodman, which is Timberline Crickets, a cricket company, guys. A cricket company is one of our biggest investors in our fight. He donates so much money to USARK official. He donates money to USARK Florida. Gary Bagnall, ZooMed. ZooMed is wonderful. They make incredible products that I love. I'm a huge supporter of ZooMed, but Gary is taking a lot of his money. I mean, if you go look, USARK's address is ZooMed, because ZooMed fosters the whole USARK thing all day long. And when we need extra money, Gary's there, Todd's there, NARBC auctions, all the auctions, all the money that comes from that goes to feed USARK. And the money, we are not relying, we don't get enough money through memberships and private donations to really do any of these fights.
Absolutely.
We need people that come in. So let's take USARK Florida. We have people that, like Elizabeth. Elizabeth doesn't get paid a dime. I don't get paid. I'm not on the USARK board. I shouldn't be on any USARK board, because I need to be a hitman. I need to go out there and get people motivated, maybe say some colorful things, talk a little bit, get down in the trenches and do some bad stuff to, say things and fight with people. And so I can't be that, clean, just boring type thing. I have to really get people involved. So, you know, I'm a hitman, but Elizabeth and Michael Cole and Brian Love, these people work for free and they're throwing in huge amounts of money. Brian Love.
And they have to travel to all of these places to be present.
They're like, oh, I just invested over $130,000 donated to help pay for the attorneys. And I mean, this stuff is expensive. Our lobbyists are expensive. To depose FWC officers one by one and have an attorney painfully ask them all these things. The Freedom of Information Act and getting a hold of all the email change and seeing, hey, is this legal? Is this, you know, and you're having all these attorneys weigh in. That's very, very expensive. But if we're going to fight them, we have to be methodical. And it costs a lot of money. So anybody that ever thinks that money is being misappropriated from members or anything is insane, because that membership money is gone. There's all this extra money that keeps having to come in for us to even turn the lights on, so to speak, the next day.
Right.
It's sad to see people talking like that, and that USARK needs to be investigated, like their tax return. And there's nobody in USARK that is of this mindset that would ever want any of the money. They're here because they're fighters and they're concerned.
That's right. I said that when my first 10 lead, as we all was walking around having our cocktails, watching our reptiles, Phil Goss the entire time never got a break. That man literally ran the entire time. I think somebody finally tried to sit him down at the auction, but even then he had something else he needed to do to get ready for the next day. So with that being said, AnimalCon, can you talk a little bit about that? And will there be any value? So I plan, because, you know, I wasn't coming at first because I had a job, but now that I just don't have one of those, I'm planning to come to AnimalCon. But for the people in Florida who could probably drive to AnimalCon, is there anything that we could do that day? Very organized, prepared, decently, you know, orderly, to make an impact in Florida?
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a breakout meeting for USARK Florida to kind of interact with people. There's a huge amount of people that do not participate at all in USARK. They don't feel that it's worth their concern. And we need to kind of like, let's get down to it. Let's go behind this door. And if you guys think USARK's doing something bad, or if you're a critic, let's hear it. Let's get the crap out on the table. Let's get a real dialogue going. Because people that are spreading misinformation need to be dealt with, because they are hurting all of the other keepers. And it's really sad. So I asked to see if we could do this breakout meeting. It looks like we're going to do a breakout meeting now at AnimalCon. And we'll hopefully bring more people. So the basis of AnimalCon is we have people, social media platforms that are influencers. So there's something positive about them, of, you know, if it's ants, if it's weird, if it's exotic wildlife, it's reptiles, it's fish, it's birds, all these different pet keepers, people that have the likening of us, our mindsets, to all come to a place where their audience can see them and meet maybe their next favorite animal keeper or animal personality, but also importantly, get it so I become friends with the more fish people, bird people, exotic animal keepers, ants, whatever. So we all can make like our introductions. We need to be bigger than we are. And if you separate and have all your bird people here and all your fish people here and reptile people here, those are all separate tribes. We need to bring them together, one tribe, get some commonality so we can share our voice. But we need a collective number to be more powerful. So then we can embrace these laws and these injustices as they come along, and we can use science. We can have a dialogue. But if we don't create numbers, we're never going to be taken in any like seriousness. And this is hopefully a way to create that and get us talking, and also use our social media platforms for the betterment of the community, for animal welfare, for environments, for the plight of these animals in the wild, all these different things. Because what's the point in having a social media platform if I can't do something good? I mean, I can show you the blueberry muffin I ate.
Kevin, I think we lost you. If we can hit, there you go.
Yeah. So I don't want to use my social media platform to show somebody I had this delicious blueberry muffin. I want to do something that matters. And we
Right.
want more people to, sadly, to stop being narcissists. They're very narcissistic. So everything is about them, bring attention to me. But then once you have that platform,
What are you doing with it?
Good for them?
What are you doing with it?
Do you do anything good to ensure that I can do this next week?
That's right.
That's
because that's the thing. I think that for some people, they live in this era where they didn't see animals that we once could keep taken away. I always, say, I'm much older than I look. I can recall where the boa constrictor very well could not be an animal that I could keep here right now today.
We
like
fought.
The boa constrictor was on the chopping block at a point.
Yeah,
and
we fought that big time.
Right, but I think what it is too, that the old school reptile keeper were fighters. They were people who could band together, put aside any indifferences to come together for the common good of the animal. So for AnimalCon, and I hope you all in the chat heard what he said. If there's anybody who can make AnimalCon, please make it. I think that it's advertised as all of your elite social media and reptile keepers are going to be there. That's not the why. If you just heard Kevin, the why is, yes, it's great to meet Kevin McCurley as you go into this breakout section to talk about what we can do for USARK Florida. That's amazing. It's great to be able to meet Brian Barchak as you talk about these things. But the common thing is not about, and I can tell you that Kevin can care less about people needing to meet him. He is passionate about that animal, his animals. And I remember saying that it's more than even meets the eye. You guys just see a little small, narrow section of what goes on at New England Reptile. I was blown away personally. And I asked Kevin, remember I asked you, how in the world can you do all of this? I mean, I just have what I have in this house, and I know it keeps me busy.
Hyperactive mind.
Sid.
And obviously, I love animals, and I'm always forever giving myself new challenges. I'm never content with today. It's always, I could do this tomorrow. And so I'm going to address the elephant in the room. So you are an aberrancy to the world of average reptile keeping. Okay? First of all, you're a lady.
Mm-hmm.
You're black
woman.
and you've got a lot of charm and a charisma, and your heart, you don't get defeated easily. So, and that's a really great combination. So you got this charisma, and you got an understanding of animals, and you're learning, and you're not an egotistical type. So that creates a package. You will have probably a strong effect on a lot of people, because right off the bat, you're a woman, and you're talking about, I want to keep a reticulated python. I want to keep this water monitor. Right off the bat, you, to a lot of people, might be more relatable than me, you know? And, you know, I like women reptile keepers. You might get an audience of women that more interested in listening to, you know, another woman talk about it.
Right.
So that's really nice. So you're not replicating what we're commonly seeing. And what is really great, I always get excited about the Black community being more into reptiles and, you know, finding unique Facebook communities. I love that. I really do, because for so long it was almost dictated by this, you know, like cookie cutter kind of thing. But as we start bringing all sorts of walks of life that maybe people that normally would never even encounter,
that's true,
these animals, and now they're involving that, that's wonderful, because I love the animals and I cherish the animals. And then I think you can have such a great impact as you talk about your love for reticulated pythons and the value and how these animals are important to live in the wild. No matter what I can say, I'm not you. And you can pull out into a community, and being the person that you are, you're going to be like, wow, somebody else is just going to gravitate to you. And that is a wonderful thing. And I love that. And especially if I have an impact on you and I can maybe change aspects of what you think and maybe help you improve, if we want to call whatever I do improving. Right. But I do my methodology and my ideas, and then you take those on and you absorb those, and that helps you. Then you have an immediate target audience that I could never get. And I love that.
And so I have more time to do that, but I definitely, you said that for some time now, from the time that you met me, you know, you said that. And so that's one of the goals with the free time that I have now. But I think most importantly, everybody in the chat has some realm that you can operate in to make the reptile community improve. A lot of us have social media, and I'll use, for example, like Keys Constrictors. You know, we all, as part of the usual suspects, have a different walk of life, but we all have something in common, and that's the love of the animals. But we also have our own pockets of audience. And so, Kevin, what you're talking about, like, I actually, when I announced my retirement from work, there was so many people that I worked with that was following me that I didn't even know. And they have a total different perspective of the animals we keep because of me. So I know what you're saying is absolutely true. So what I will, well, we talk all the time, but what I would just say, when you wake up in the morning and that thing hits your head, that, Nicole, this is what you can do today, just tell me what it is. Because whether it's here or, you know, I have more opportunity to travel and do this now too, I definitely want to know, what is it that it takes to get into these tag meetings, like physically in the tag meeting?
I want to, you told me like after August something,
August 5th.
Yeah,
you're I'm free.
I'd like to introduce you to Elizabeth.
Okay.
And U.S. Ark Florida needs more help. It needs more driving there. But you have a uniqueness to you that's very digestible. Let's face it. You're everything about you is positive, and you have a very upbeat, thing, and you're gonna get people that take you seriously, and that's a good thing. So we can almost use you as, the vehicle to bring in some other stuff. And I think U.S. Ark Florida could, probably use further help. So,
okay.
I just think you could be an asset, and Florida is so critically important. And
it is.
And I've been bitching about this for years now, and everything that I pretty much predicted has happened. And I have people down there and they're like, oh my God, you really did, you said all this, and they go, and it's all coming true.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I mean, if I want to be realistic here, I feel like we've already kind of lost the fight because people are unwilling to be involved. They're not taking this seriously.
And that's odd to me because a lot of the reptile keepers are in Florida. A lot of the ones that I communicate on a daily basis with is in Florida. And so I definitely we have to get more of the message out there using the social media platforms. I know I've already started that. Definitely banging the US Florida in the heads of the people who can get there in 4 hours. You know what I mean? Who can get there in 2 hours. Like we will travel the world to go to a reptile show, but not travel the world to go to represent in these legislative meetings. And that's one of the things that I promise you that I'm going to change. My voice is going to be used to impact in that way because there's so many phenomenal people who can also make those positive impacts in those meetings, but just I don't think the reality of it to them until the ball pythons are taken away or until the Burmese pythons are taken away or you can't purchase them or have them. You can't have Burmese now there anyway, but if you can't have ball pythons anymore in Florida, then it's going to wake a lot of people up and then it's going to be too late.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, and people are like, what do you mean you won't be able to keep them? And they'll say, well, you can have a permit, but the permit is so ridiculously hard and you won't be able to breed anymore. So, it's interesting. So you say, if you know anybody down in Florida, it's amazing how many people I can call up and I start talking to them and they don't even know. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Oh, it can't happen. And I'm like, I'm up here in New England. This doesn't even affect me down there. But I'm trying to, guys, because I know the writing's on the wall, and I saw this years ago.
Right.
Sticking with it, but it's so damaging.
So someone asked Kevin, was Kevin playing the guitar? So Kevin holds the guitar. If you ever meet Kevin in person, he moves a lot. Or if you ever watched him do a podcast or video without something in his hands, he can't stay still. Like right now.
Absolutely. This is my fidget.
But he does play the guitar.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He plays it. You play in a band, right, Kevin?
Yeah. I mean, look, see, I'm not just making this up.
He really plays the guitar.
Yeah.
Sydney.
I thought it was evident, but yeah.
All right, Kevin. So we know Kevin is got a lot of work to do and he's short staffed. If you take anything from here, if I sum everything up that we talked today, I want you guys to remember the importance of responsible reptile keeping, the importance of supporting U.S. ARC. Woohoo! We overcame the Lacey Act for now. For now,
come on.
For now.
Keep coming back.
For now. Responsible large reptile keeping. And a lot of you in the chat, I appreciate as Kevin was talking through that. It's okay to say it's not for me because although we can make it look very comfortable, Kevin mentioned something, we're comfortable with the animal. We're comfortable. I kept ball pythons for years before I ever got a reticulated python. So you can't just go in and say, I want a reticulated python. You have to understand, I particularly think something about a reptile, period. And then the lizards, the tagles and the water monitors as well. I think it's harder to keep lizards than snakes, to be honest. Are you about to get snarfles? No, I was gonna say no. Oh, woo! Look at that big old anaconda. Beautiful. So
no hook, Mom.
I see. And you know what? That's still the one large snake that I won't keep, Kevin.
Yeah.
People ask me why. I think that with a reticulated python, you can read them really, really well. The anaconda can go from 0 to 100.
So the trick is this, okay?
Okay.
If you raise one up in captivity and you're good to it, you build a better vehicle. So I go right into that cage. I have a whole bunch of them here, and I'm not even like, oh, that's Nancy, that's Josie. I'm like,
right.
Just one of my anacondas, and I just.
So, how far? Where's Snuffles? Is Snuffles nearby? Because no one is going to let you just.
Oh, here he is. Hold on.
There you go, Sid. He's getting your child.
Yeah. Snarfles. He's like, Daddy, feed me. Hold on.
Yes.
Come here. Come here.
So for those of you who are watching on Facebook who may not be animal lovers, Snuffles is a wonderful reticulated python who was born with a birth defect, but he has his own personality.
Oh.
There he goes, Sid.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me get him. I want you all to stare into my googly eyes. Look at me. I am Snarfles. I'm magnifico.
I had the pleasure of seeing Snuffles in person. I actually have Snuffles. I have a picture with Snuffles. But Snuffles has his own personality. So if you want to go on Instagram and just search Snuffles, it's all kinds of very funny videos of Snuffles.
He's
yes. I love his eyes.
Googly eyes woman. Look at me. Wait.
Oh goodness. So when are you flying into AnimalCon? When are you arriving?
So the dates for AnimalCon are the 26th to the 28th, but I think Donnie, he has us coming in earlier and then leaving later. So
okay.
But yeah, I'll be around. I'm sure he has ideas. So what's really cool at AnimalCon, if you get VIP passes on Sunday, we get to go to Gatorland. They're going to shut Gatorland down for us, and it's just going to be the influencers and the VIP pass holders.
Okay.
So we get to go and see everything, and that's really going to be the meet and greet schmooze, kind of thing, I believe.
Okay.
I think that's going to be something that's going to be rather noteworthy. So if you were kind of on, the fence thinking about going to AnimalCon, Sunday, Gatorland, that's where it's just going to be ridiculous.
Okay, so everybody, you hear that? I'm definitely planning to make it. I'll be in Florida. It looks like 3 times in the month of August now. My last work week my job is sending me to Florida for the last week of work, and then I'll be down there for the Daytona Reptile Show, and then back again for AnimalCon. So that is absolutely amazing. Kevin,
that's the last.
I absolutely am so excited that you made time for me today. I think please share out this video. Make sure you're getting the information out there. I, for one, and everyone, if you've noticed already, I've been utilizing some of my time to just start being more educational, more demonstrational as well, to show you how I engage with the animals on more of the platform. And just to try to encourage everyone else to understand the importance of the image that we place in the media of our animals. We know they eat. And one of the things Kevin said today, and Tim and I say it all the time, I don't know a reticulated python that you have to feed live. You can put a dead piece of pizza in there, and my reticulated python, I'm sure we eat it. So
Is officially dead.
Right, exactly. But if there's anybody in the New Hampshire area who actually love animals, who believe in coming to work and being there on time, please reach out to Kevin McCurley of NERD so you can give him some support. But you need to be able to show up and, love the animals. That's the most important thing, because I would tell you would get a different Kevin if you don't treat the animals right.
That's quite true.
But you'll get a different cold too if you don't treat the animals right.
It's a frustrated Kevin is not. I don't tend to smile.
And if you would be privy to some of the most amazing animals, like the one animal I don't have, Kevin, is my Bolins.
Yeah. Well, we know why, because that's rather rare and pricey.
Yes, rare, pricey, and Lord Jesus, the husbandry on that has to be on point.
Yeah.
But they're the most beautiful animals as well. But I just appreciate just the blessing of having you. I always say all the time, having you in the animal world and having you to continue after all these years, still being passionate enough to even share your knowledge, your time, your experience, your expertise. I am so happy to see you travel a little. I don't know if that is courtesy of Tara, but if it is, please, please keep it going because you need to live outside a little bit too.
Good luck on that.
All right, guys. So thank you
Bye.
all for tuning in. I'm going to chat with Kevin just a quick second in the back. I appreciate you all. Please tune in tonight. Angie Celtic Balls. I'm going to mess this up. I believe it's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If not, it's 6 Central. I do know that. I will be on Celtic Balls with Angie for Ladies Night. I'm excited about that. And remember to support U.S. Art, whether you get a bronze, you get a silver or gold, upgrade if you need to, but send a shout out to U.S. Art through Instagram. Tell them just thank you for what they've done for us with the Lacey Act. Just show our appreciation for those guys, because without them, Kevin wouldn't be holding snorkels. I wouldn't be getting ready to go over here and feed a couple snakes before I go out of town. I definitely wouldn't be able to breed ball pythons, which was a dream of mine. So doing that now is just amazing for me, Kevin. And just, guys, this is real. This is our life. This is our world. And the most important thing that I say to everybody, for some people, they lose their animals. Life goes on. For people like myself and Kevin, we will mentally deteriorate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of you guys, I know, we will mentally deteriorate. So thank you so much. Thank you, AJ. Thank you for coming through, bro. Shout out to all the usual suspects. That's my love. That's my family. Thank you for everybody. Sydney, thank you for stopping in to stall Kevin some more. Poor man, I'm going to give him some security. But we appreciate you all for joining in. And Bosa Balls. Bosa is the man in the background on the Wheels of Steels for me today. I can see his face. You guys can't. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me hold on. I'm going to do it. Bosa has been managing the chat for me today with his Key shirt on and my U.S. Ark shirt. Thank you, Bosa, so much for doing this for me, because I knew I was going to need all of their help and support today. And this has been amazing. Guys, share this out, and peace to the chat. Bosa, stay in here for a second. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.